Hi there, Kendra Tolbert here. I'm a registered dietitian and yoga teacher, and I specialize in women's health and fertility. And we are continuing with our preconception preparation series, and specifically, we are in the nutrition portion of our preconception preparation series. This is the fourth video in that sub-series, and we're covering principle number 2. So we're moving backwards through the principles. And this principle is honor your heritage. This one is near and dear to my heart because I don't think there's nearly enough information out there and encouragement out there to let people know that the foods that are uniquely yours because they are a part of the culture that you come from, the people you come from, those foods are fertility supporting foods. Yes? And I really don't think it matters which culture you come from. This is true. If it weren't true, you wouldn't be here, right? Because those are the foods that sustained your people for so very, very long. I do think that the wellness world tends to have this idea that a food has to have been tested by Western science and has to be a part of like this Western ideal diet in order to be good. And that's simply not true. Again, none of us would be here if the only foods that were beneficial were the foods that Western science determined after studying were beneficial. We wouldn't be here. In the world of fertility nutrition, the Mediterranean diet gets a ton of attention, and it should. It is a lovely eating pattern. It is one that is based in a traditional way of eating from a particular region. The thing is that it gets so much attention because it gets so much attention. So researchers keep studying it and they keep holding it up as this ideal and not even comparing everything else to it, because I really haven't seen where they've, taken like the traditional African diet and studied that, and taken a traditional Latino diet and studied that for fertility, taken a traditional Asian diet and studied that for fertility. If you keep looking in one place, you're going to keep finding your answers in one place. Yeah? Something to think about. The other thing is that I think a lot of people aren't aware that the Mediterranean score that researchers give people based on how they answer particular questions, the questions that they're asking them aren't, do you eat the recipes of this region? They're asking them about food groups. So tons of different cultures could get high scores for their eating pattern and get a high med diet score, even if they weren't eating a Mediterranean diet. So researchers are asking things like, how often do you eat red meat? How often do you eat seafood? How often do you eat grains? How often do you eat fruits? How often do you eat vegetables? How often do you eat olive oil? How often do you eat dairy? How often do you use herbs and spices? How often do you eat, did I say nuts, seeds, those sorts of things, right? Like those are the questions they're asking them. They're not asking them, what recipes do you use? Do they come from this region? So as you can imagine, there are tons of cultures that would get a high med diet score if they were asked those questions, right? I will use my family as an example. My family comes from a lot of different places originally, but in most recent history, my family comes from New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Memphis. So Southern roots through and through. So when I look at the food, and I was mostly raised by my maternal side of my family. So when I look at the foods there, heavily influenced by Louisiana. We migrated to San Diego, so then heavily influenced by the foods of the coast, right? So we've got this Louisiana way of eating and the Southern California way of eating. So in Louisiana, a lot of dishes are seafood based. So I'd have a pretty high med diet score based on the fact that we ate a ton of seafood, we ate a ton of fruits and vegetables, right? So tons of okra and tomatoes and what was another one that was really common? Collard greens, right? So that'd give us a high score. We ate lots of red beans and rice, so tons of beans, peas, and lentils. My grandmother loved lima beans and black-eyed peas, so that would give us a high number. Like I said, we ate a lot of seafood. We ate a fair amount of whole grains. My grandmother was big on wheat bread. What else did we eat a lot of? She loved pecans and walnuts and peanuts and peanut butter. So we would get a high score for that. I grew up eating tons of sunflower seeds, like loved them. So based on that, like we would get a high med diet score, but no one could say that we were eating a traditional Mediterranean diet, but we get a high med diet score. And she also used a lot of olive oil because of the recommendations that she received from her provider. And in San Diego, I ate a lot of food. I ate a lot of Mexican food. So I ate a lot of avocado, I ate a lot of lettuce and tomatoes and onions and peppers and a lot of beans, a lot of rice, a lot of fish tacos, because in California, fish tacos are a big thing. So again, I would have gotten a high med diet score based on what I was eating, based on the foods and food groups I was eating, even though no one could say that I was eating a Mediterranean diet. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about aligning yourself with a Mediterranean diet based on the recommendations that we have around the Mediterranean diet for fertility. It does not mean that you have to eat the foods that come from the Mediterranean diet. You can. They're delicious. Please explore, have fun. And know that your foods are good enough. And know that the people you come from are good enough. And that it's okay to continue to explore those cultural foods and that those are fertility supporting foods, because again, none of us would be here if they weren't. Yeah. So I hope that that reminds you to honor your heritage when you're making food choices, to be proud of the people that you come from. Again, continue to explore their foods. That's the fun thing about the world that we live in, is that we can explore others' foods, other people's foods. We can exchange, we can make hybrids of things. It's beautiful. And there's not one right way of eating. Your ways of eating can be good, are good. The people you come from are good. I will leave a link to some like med diet scoring sort of things so that you can see what researchers are looking at when they're giving people a Mediterranean diet score, so that you can say, hey, like maybe I could benefit from having more beans, peas, and lentils according to this Mediterranean diet, but there are also beans, peas, and lentils that are unique to where you come from and your foods and the foods that are around you if you're now in a new region. Yeah, so I hope that helps. I hope it leaves you feeling like you can be a lot more flexible and that your foods are good enough. Yeah? All right, enjoy the rest of your day. Be well, and bye for now.